And we're live. We're still driving the struggle bus here on the Dunder Moose show, but my goodness, people. Here comes Paulie and his Paulie famous in his toga. We are you can't see my face because of the stinking logo because I'm cheap and I do the free plan, but we're on EV this time. We are back at it with YouTube and with X, and just to start us off, this whole last night began, oh, it was 2 nights ago now. 2 nights ago began. Oh no, when was the Stein? Was it Saturday?
Saturday the 21st.
Saturday. Okay, my guys.
Saturday.
I'm sorry. Can we redo this? Just to let you guys know what happened to me on Saturday. And I've been fighting it. It's like a heat wave here in Michigan, and my the breaker box down here in the man cave started hissing and spitting, and I touched the breaker for the main, and it was like too hot to touch. So I had to have some serious electrical work done so that my house wouldn't burn down. So that's why I'm all frazzled. But Jacob Laterno had a dream. He came on here. He shared it. We clipped it. I put it out as a short on my channel. But Jacob, tell them about your dream. What was the impetus for what became Hale Steinzer, the BrawnSteen of all time?
So it was that really ridiculous promo that was a parody of MLK's "I Have a Dream," but it was "I'll run a Steen," and
I'll run a
it was
Steen.
it was good. But anyway, after running, I'd gone out to play BrawnSteen TM with Dave Wesley and
Real one. First one.
the real one,
The OG.
first one, yeah. And I had run one in the exact same style, only themed after Tarantino's Crazy Eight. Then I ran a Night Steen, which was awesome. I had played in Arizona too with the bros, which was awesome. And I was like, I think this can be repeated fairly regularly, and I would like to bring in people from outside my friend group to play in these and kind of get some exposure to it because, one day, Griff and Wesley will put out their product of, Wesley's BrawnSteen. But if
Yeah.
no one knows how to play a BrawnSteen, then
Braunstein.
Brownstein. Yeah, but if no one knows how to play it, then what good is that going to do? And I also think after this one, I feel like I got to run probably 2 or 3 more. But I also think that you can fairly easily make products of this style of game. Now, is there a market for it? No, but it could be done. So like this, part of it was also like me running games for people who are not in my friend group, because when you write a product, you got to write a product for someone that you don't know, and we can get to that later. But yeah, so I ran this, which is I'm trying to get my camera in the right place. Hale Steinzer. It was just a Roman themed BrawnSteen after a secession war after the Empress dies in my home campaign in the Roman Empire themed setting where we're going to start running Axe. So obviously I had to get the man, the myth, the legend Archon in on it. And then I got these guys together, and we can go from there.
All right. So you put out the call. You cast a wide net, and
Yeah.
this is a screen full of folk, and this is not even everyone that came to play, right? These are just the guys that could do it tonight to share.
So I believe we had 16 people at one point.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So like last time, let me see if I can grab it here. Like last time, you came out with a primer for us. So This is the Hale Steinzer, a Jay Laterno scenario. And this is very handy. I really like this. It kind of gives an introduction of your definition of what a BrawnSteen-like game is. It goes through the nuts and bolts, the steps. And then you go in some history of the Empire and magic and the map and how everything works. No, I want to point out this is not. I don't know if the map will show up great on here. Let me do.
Oh yeah,
This.
that is not as nice as the A Nightstein map, but
All right.
you know, it is
Anyway,
what it is.
so here's the map, and a Nightstein took place. Where's my hand on the thing?
The upper right.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
right
where
there.
a Nightstein takes place, and then this one takes place down here somewhere, right?
It takes place in the center, where at the Capitol.
Okay. So
Yeah,
just to say, you can do this with your games, and you don't have to always be in the same spot. You can jump around the map and use it as a way to develop the entire scenario. But so here's a Nightstein. You do kind of like a little recap of what happened, and then you have an inciting event for this session and the mysteries. Right? We had the death of the Empress. The immortal Empress died. So that was one of the mysteries, and then the question is who's gonna take over, and then you go into a little bit of your conflict resolution, which is basically boot hill plus chainmail jousting, plus a little bit of Gamma World, right?
yeah.
All right. So I would say that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. This kind of stands in for the hour-long exposition of what's going on in Prussia that Wesley does in original BrawnSteen.
That's certainly what the goal was. Yeah,
Okay.
is that plus maybe, you know, just a 15-minute talk / Q&A at the beginning was supposed to stand in for the 45 to an hour that Wesley has, because like let's just play the game. And if you want to spend the time to read through it, you can have it in front of you. You can, and then you'd also have your character sheet, your the guide for your character. So which Wesley also had. Wesley's each character's one was like 3 pages. Mine I tried keeping to a page. Now, for some of the characters that was to a detriment. I think I should have included a little bit more detail. It would have helped them out more.
Okay.
But yeah.
So I didn't see all the other. I just saw my own character sheet. So maybe we'll let some of the other guys on the screen here talk a bit and just tell what did you get for your character. And we'll just start. We'll just do it Brady Bunch style. Top left on my screen is Alexander Macris. So tell us a little bit about what you got from your character, and maybe a little bit about what your expectations were coming into this. How much did you know about this kind of style of play? Have you played in one of these before? And like, what did you think before you tried it?
All right. Well, so I hadn't played in one of your BrawnSteens before. I had played in my younger days in war game campaigns at West Point that were similar to a BrawnSteen, as well as in live action role play games that ran at conventions. And this reminded me more than anything, it reminded me of a live action role play game from a convention, but played over Discord rather than at a convention. But, you know, sort of the skullduggery, going into private rooms to have conversations, largely narrative driven with occasional interruptions by battle combat. So the character I got, I was made the head of the Senate Majority Leader. You gave me a very interesting character in that he was the actual person who had assassinated the emperor.
Yeah.
And so my goal was to take over while pinning the blame on someone else.
Nice.
I had an assassin that worked for me that I was allowed to DM with. And I had a long list of all of the other characters in the game and what I thought about them, with 1 or 2 sentences about what I thought their goals were, what their personality was. Sometimes accurate, sometimes not. You know, it was kept relatively minimalist, but I thought it was just enough to hang my hat on without overwhelming me. So it was like 2 pages. And then I frankly didn't pay that much attention to my combat stats because I quickly realized early on that I wasn't obviously going to be getting into it with like the chief war hero or whatnot. So that was a fail state for me, and I just didn't even worry about it.
All right.
Yeah, if your character got into combat, something was going wrong.
Something had gone very wrong.
Exactly. I was like, yeah, I'm like, what am I? I'm like Lindsey Graham or some shit, right? Like I'm not, you know, I'm Cocaine Mitch. I ain't getting into melee. So,
Right on. All right. Did you feel like a sense of because like for me, I had 3 goals,
Uh-huh.
and I felt like I probably can't accomplish all of these. I need to pick one to try early and see if I can stack onto that. Did you find that as the game went on, you found new goals for yourself that weren't on your sheet, that you were like, this says I need to do this to win, but I'm not going to feel satisfied unless this other thing is accomplished?
Oh, no. I played like a total sociopath. I had my list of what my goals were, and I was like, I will accomplish these goals.
Right on, right on.
Yeah. So my goals were to become elected emperor, to take out 3 members of the voting, and to pin the blame for the crime on someone else. And I thought, well, this all makes sense. Obviously, I need to pin the blame on someone else so that I can be the emperor.
Yes.
And there will be people who vote against me, so those are the people that need to get taken out. Everything is proceeding according to plan. I went with that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
All right, Marinus, you're next up on my screen. A little bit about your expectations coming into this. Have you played in a Steam before? And what were some of your goals? Who was your character?
Okay, so I have played in a few Steens before. I played in Gobsteen, and then with the bros, I played in Moonstein Restilled.
Oh, nice.
And I worked a lot with you in that one. So I kind of knew what was going on. Plus, back in the 90s, I did LARP. I did hang out with White Wolf Crowd. I'm not really very proud of that time in my life, but it was a time in my life. And it translates very well as
So,
Macris
okay.
said.
So, would you say that the bros have gone theater kid with all this Steen stuff?
They most certainly have. They really have. I'm sorry, guys. This is just who we are.
Oh,
So-
man. Don't let Black
I know.
Lodge Games hear you say that.
Well, no, let them hear. Hopefully, they're coming to join me on August 2nd.
That's right.
For
We need to
theater
get them in
kid
on there.
shenanigans.
Wait,
Yeah.
can I interrupt for just one
Please.
sec? All right.
Uh-huh.
So when I was at West Point at the War Games Club, we played a De Bellis Napoleonica campaign. So it was Napoleonic theater level campaign where we each were playing one of the rulers. And then the actual battles we would fight in 25 millimeter miniature, massive, multi-hour long Napoleonic battles using the rules for De Bellis Napoleonica. And but I just want you guys to understand, like, this was as hardcore as it gets. We were the War Games Club at the United States Military Academy. And let me tell you, when we sat down to be the Emperor of France meeting with the Emperor of Austria, we were theater kids. I mean, it was full on
The accent.
LARPing, and because I happen to be a disgustingly good LARPer, I, as Emperor Napoleon, managed to convince the King of Prussia to join my faction at a critical moment, so that when we then sat down at the table and broke out the 25 millimeters, the King of Prussia came and sat on my side of the table,
Heck
and everyone
yeah,
was like,
bro.
"What the fuck?"
And
we won. So, The idea that LARP and Wargame are enemies is not true, man. The true Ubermensch is the theater kid who is also Genghis Khan. Okay, so
That's awesome.
Marinus,
right.
man, have no shame. Your Vampire the Masquerade LARP only made you the superior warrior.
Marinus and I were doing great in Moonstein up until we weren't.
Up until we.
That is absolutely a conversation for another time.
Yeah.
Yeah, Marinus, who did you play this time? Were you the Dama?
I was Kalim Da Walik. So I was the representative from Dama. I was an ambassador from Dama, which is a desert kingdom. I was supposed to play a Fremen style character. And I was the obvious choice for who to go after. And on my character sheet, it noted, you didn't kill the Empress, but you would have if you could have. Like, if you had the opportunity, you would have absolutely taken it. So I was expecting to get mugged by everyone in the beginning, and that did not quite happen. So my goals were to negotiate a 1-year ceasefire in exchange for visitation to holy sites. And somehow that happened. And then also prevent Savmon, which was the Nightstein kingdom, my understanding. Am I right, Jay?
Yep.
From joining the Empire. So to facilitate that, I helped to make sure that the ambassador to Savmon died. So that was accomplished. And then I did not get to kill Bromius Falco or Maximus, who we will hear about later. But I had my sheet. I really like it. I'm kind of anal, and I like having the full list of, hey, here's all your people and what you think about them. Again, it reminds me very much of White Wolf and Fading Suns and all of those things. Legend of the Five Rings, very much in that vein, and I appreciated that greatly.
So you killed Gasset?
I was the one who made that deadly. Yeah, I pulled out my Chris knife, and
Did
out,
you shoot him in the crotch?
No, the high priest was hit in the crotch, but that was not me.
As long as somebody was. And
Yes,
we're not playing Axe, mind you.
No. So no, I just stabbed somebody that other people were trying to subdue because they speared at him first. So I figured it was fair.
Gotcha. All right, I moved him down one, but Rod Hampton, I wanted to get you out from under the EV mucks, but you were the next on the screen. You were Governor Dig Your Booty, or whatever. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
Yeah. I did take some liberties as we were riding in from the eastern provinces. Somebody called me Dig Your Booty, and I was like, okay, I got to change this name. I'm on the fly making a command decision to alter the name I've been given. And so I was Dig Your Booty. But yeah, I really appreciated the synopsis of what the campaign was. I found it very easy to follow. That was a fantastic handout.
And this is coming from someone who, I mean, I know Jay said that you can't really market. There's no market for this stuff. But Rod, you have published a scenario like this, a Steen layout.
I think I made like $15 or something. So.
Oh, okay. So
Nice.
there is an audience. There is an audience. He came on my show and talked about it anyway.
But the funny thing is, right? So I get this character, and I'm like, okay, this is the guy from Bahubali, which I've got both the soundtracks on my phone, right? I mean, I love those movies; they're fantastic. But that night, I was just not feeling it, right? I could not get into an Indian character mode, so I was playing it pretty straight. But I had 3 goals: become emperor, and since I had not played with a lot of, I think most people, aside from you, Dunder, I didn't know. And so become emperor to me seemed like an insurmountable goal. Help Ajax Maximus. I couldn't even find that dude for like the first, 30 minutes of the game. So I'm like, okay, I'm really sucking on this goal. And then
that's always a risk, though. Let me just interrupt there, because you get a goal on your sheet, and then if the guy that plays AJ doesn't show up, now Jay's got to figure out how to pay that off, right?
Right. Yeah, and then the last goal was to turn the Prismatus and the Masmos, or however it's pronounced, against each other, and I was working on that, but not very effectively.
You'd think that would be an easy goal, is turning people against each other in one of these. But anytime you start trying to do something, I notice you immediately get suspicion, because everyone knows that everyone else probably has 3 goals, right?
Yes.
So, right on.
Yeah. So before we go to the next guy, I'll just talk about the representative from Masmos. So that was my buddy Obese Reese. He was in A Night Stein as Jermaine Duquesne. So
he was a Thane, right? Thane Jermaine Duquesne?
Yeah, Thane Jermaine Duquesne. Before he was a Thane, he was just the plane. But so the school, so he's the representative for basically the Hogwarts of the setting. That's where all the magic users are trained. But he and I mostly him came up with the name of that school back in probably 2013. Like the last time we did any major play in this region was 12 years ago, but maybe 11. But so the actual full name of it is the Ancient and Prestigious Mocklin Academy of Spiritual, Mystical, and Arcane Studies.
Okay.
So we just call it Mass because no one's gonna be able to say that.
Right on, man.
All right, next person.
All right, so I think I was. Oh no. Next, if we're going left to right, Whopper Wizard was the next one. So go ahead, Whopper.
Yeah. So I started with great plans as the Southwest governor of Karagatan, Minotep. We are very wise people. And I was going to get all the votes. I had them in the bag. I would have won, but Dunder killed me pretty early on. So I came back as Ajax. I think I did pretty well as Ajax. I got 2 of my goals done, but yeah, I have run a BrawnSteen before. Never played in one, so this was a great experience. Yeah.
How was it different running it versus playing in it?
Well, I didn't really know what I was doing when I was running it.
I think that's part of that. You got to be that way to run a BrawnSteen, right? Like,
yeah. I was running Browser, so people were running around with their military, and I was playing with a bunch of 5e guys, and they never played a war game before. They didn't know what they were doing.
Everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah, but they had a great time though. Apparently, at least most of them.
Yeah, Bradford Walker. The Throne War Game of Amber is a BrawnSteen, in the back of the Amber Diceless book. You're correct.
Okay, right on. I have Amber Diceless. I just haven't read it yet. So yeah, I did. I killed the Whopper Wizard, and maybe it's time for me. Well, let me just point out a callback. That's how you solve it, right, Jay? If you've got someone that doesn't show up and you've got this NPC that's important to someone else's goals, you just wait for Dunder to make the first move and kill somebody again.
It always works.
And then you say, all right, well, Dunder killed you, so you can be this other guy that we need to show up. All right, so let me just explain a little bit about my character. I was the governor of the Northeast.
Yeah.
So we started off on 2 boats, and if you were east side, you were on one boat, and if you were west side, you were on another boat. There was going to be an election for the next emperor after the empress was murdered, and so I think a lot of us, I think all the governors had a goal of try to become the next emperor. Like we were all trying to get the votes to do that. But we started in 2 groups, and so like the alliances start forming on the boats where we're like, all right, well, we can't let any of those west side guys win. Let's just agree among ourselves. If you can't vote for me, at least make sure that nobody from the west gets elected. Now, one of my goals was to try to prevent whoever did become emperor from siding with 2 of the colorful dragons that are kind of in the background of all of these in the world. Was it the yellow and the red, maybe?
Yeah. So the ambassador from Savmon, Gasset, he works for the yellow one. And then there was also another character who was secretly the leader of the Red Dragons faction. And so you're trying to prevent them from forming alliances during this whole thing.
And but that's a hard goal because I don't know who's going to win the vote, right? So I could get all kinds of assurances from a dude, and then he doesn't. Now, it seems to me in retrospect, the vote was probably easier than I was thinking because you don't have to beat everyone. You've just got to beat whoever's alive when it comes time to vote, right? Yeah. So I don't got to outrun the bear. I just got to outrun you is how that kind of politically worked out. But one of my goals was to kill the governor of the Southwest, which was Whopper Wizard, and but it was a 2-parter. I was supposed to kill him, and I was supposed to blame it on Mr. Marinus up there. Walik was supposed to take the fall. So I'm like, okay, how do I get this guy to die in such a way that they think Walik did it? And I just found myself alone with the help, and I know he's in the chat. Macho Mandoff. For some reason, Evie Mux isn't the greatest. It seems like someone always struggles, and we could not get Macho's audio. Hopefully, when it's his turn, he can jump back in. We can hear him. He just can't hear us. So maybe, Macho, if you're listening, when we get to you, I'll give you another chance to jump on and kind of talk about it. But there were 3 people that were just serving staff. They were just, like staff number 1, number 2, and number 3. Yep. And I found myself with Walik and with the staff. And the staff were setting out drinks for everybody for this big reception. And I'm like, oh, perfect. On my sheet, I had 2 doses of wyvern poison. And so I tell the staff members, hey, I've got a question. Maybe you guys can help me. and there might be something in it. I was going to pay each of them 100 gold pieces to assist and for their silence. And it wasn't all three of them. It was just two staff members at that point. And they were like, staff member 1 immediately was like, oh, I've got a place we can go. Let's go up to the office upstairs. It's locked, but I have a key. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I just, like an idiot, followed him in there, thinking it was just going to be me and the staff. Well, guess who decides to come along? Mr. Walik.
I absolutely tagged along for that. I was like, okay, we're going to go somewhere private and discuss stuff. I'm down.
All right. So I'm like, oh, crap, he's here. So he comes in, and I'm already like, okay, I need one of you guys to slip this into the drink of the Memnotep or whatever. What was your name, Whopper? I don't know if Whopper.
His name was Nayubin Memnotep.
All right, Memnotep. I was like, I need you to slip this into Memnotep's drink. And before I could even hand it to him, Paulie kicks in the door, and he's got Archon with him and one other dude. Was it Josh? Like 3 dudes just bust in, and they're like, what the heck do you think you're doing in here? And like, Paulie's in his toga.
Upset.
He's got a saber, and he pulls out a letter opener, and he starts menacing the camera with it. And before anybody can do anything, he's like, you guys are coming. You came in here on purpose, didn't you? Because this is where the Empress's actual coffin is. And we're all just like, what? Like, I just thought we were ducking in. And before I can do anything, he stabs. Well, he was going to stab the wrong guy. He was like, show me the key. And nobody had it because it was still hanging in the door. And he stabbed the guy in the leg. And the fight was going on. And I was like, holy crap. And I just kind of like pulled my 2 drinks and slipped the poison into them. And then, like, I was just hoping there was going to be enough arguing amongst them that I could sneak out without getting involved in the melee. Like, for a second, I thought about trying to kill Paulie while he was going after, and I made a hubbub about, like, this isn't really respectable in a leader. Paulie was playing the general that kind of took charge after the Empress died. But yeah, Archon was back in Paulie's play. The High Priest was back in, and you guys were brothers, right? You and the High Priest, Archon?
Yeah, so we were brothers. It was weird though because my character sheet actually.
All right, so I could explain that.
Okay.
So I don't remember what the High Priest's last name was originally supposed to be, but when I wrote up the character sheet, I gave him the same last name as the Senate leader, and so the player who's playing the High Priest right before the game, he messages me and he goes, wait, which one of us is Secundus? I have Secundus, and then there's this other guy, Secundus, and I go, oh crap. Okay, you're brothers. Just roll with it.
You must be brothers.
So the thing is, on my character sheet, it actually had this this scroll of cause injury, and then in parentheses it said which you should use to pin the blame on the High Priest.
What?
And so I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. So the High Priest is my brother, but I'm supposed to pin the blame on him. And so as we were playing, the High Priest was literally getting murdered right in the room with me.
Yeah.
And so I'm like slow rolling my outrage about it all, being like, oh, I can't believe this is happening. We better stop now. And the poor priest was like screaming for me to help me. Brother, help me. So I was like slow rolling it because I didn't know what was going on. I thought, well, I guess I'm supposed to have him die. So then I kind of like let him die and then got really morally affronted about it and then took it as a win because he was one of the 3 I had to axe from the voting. And I was like, this is great. They did my job for me.
Oh man. Okay. So I'm just going to finish my story because it's like literally the only thing I did before I was done.
Then you
right. So, Whopper, you can remind me. I don't know how we wound up in another room together. But I got in there and we started, I've got this like tray with 2 drinks on it, both of which are poisoned at this point. I'm like doing the Wesley gambit from Princess Bride. And he and I, before anyone else can join, he and I like hatched this scheme. And I'm like, all right, listen. I was like, I just want to make sure that the red and the yellow dragon don't, wind up in a strong position. And he's like, I hate dragons. I hate them all. And I was like, all right, good. I was like, I will throw my vote your way if you promise me that you are going to block those dragons from getting any power in your kingdom. And he was like, all right, that's a deal. And I was like, shall we drink to our new alliance?
And I said, give me that cup. And I downed it. And
he grabbed my cup in front of me instead of the one in front of him. He could clearly not choose the goblet in front of him. But in my head, and I didn't realize he was just going to drink it. I would not have drank my own. But in my head, it seemed like he was watching me to see if we should both drink. And I was like, I had to sit in on your little primer on how the game works. Maybe I was overconfident. I thought, I can bluff my way through this. I have not developed an immunity to iocane powder, but maybe the dice will be with me and I will not suffer. And so we both drank. And he's like, okay, what now? And I was like, now we both need to save against poison. And he's like, what? And I immediately rolled, and my first roll was mortal wound.
Yeah, lethal.
And the poison gives you 3 wounds, all to the abdomen / groin. And my first one, I rolled an 88, and it was like dead. And then Whopper was having a problem with the roller. He was typing it in, but it wasn't going. And so I was like, I'll roll for you. And I rolled another 88. And he's like, I do not accept your roll.
So then he calls me in.
You said you roll for me. And I said, no. And then you rolled anyway. Yeah. Also, you didn't have to drink at all. I literally said, I grab your drink and I drink it.
I missed that. Now you got to remember that the breaker box was like buzzing and fuzzing and blowing smoke behind me. So I'm like, my attention is distracted. So we both drink. I immediately failed, and he rolls a minor wound, and then he rolls a serious wound, and then he rolls a mortal wound. So he went through all the pain, and we just both died in the room. And Jay, I didn't realize, I was like, so you were like, okay, do you guys want to play somebody else? And I was like, man, I really should go. I don't even know if I'm going to have power tonight, if my house is going to burn down. And after I shut everything down and I was lying in bed, my eyes popped open. I was like, I should have written the name Walik as I was dying and slipped it under
blood.
his hand. Because then I would have murdered my guy, and I would have put the blame on Walik, who was there in the room when we were all having the conversations about, okay, yeah, let's poison this dude. And it was just like that Spirit of the Staircase. We're like, oh, you lost your chance to win anything. And I was dead. So I'm done telling my story. Matthew Agrippa, you have been very patiently waiting. Go ahead and tell us about your BrawnSteen experience. Tell us about your character and what were you trying to do in the game.
So Jay and I actually played in Wesley's BrawnSteen together as well. So I got to experience that, and then his. I had not played any other games with Jay, though. So other than Cosmic Encounters. But
yeah. Right. Because you know Harmony, right? You have to play.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I played Agrippa. My whole thing was I was trying to spread the message of the king. This is Messianic religion.
Okay.
And also trying to become emperor. So it took me all of about 30 minutes to kind of be like, okay, I'm probably not going to become emperor. Because what am I going to do here? But I can at least get everyone here to become worshipers of the king. Well, I failed at both of those things. But I got 1 convert. I thought I had 2, and I was like, cool, I've got the 2 that I needed for my score. And I find out that the other guy I thought I converted was already a worshiper. But luckily, though, I got Minotep
preached
converted.
To the choir.
Exactly. I got Minotep converted before he died. So that's all that counts.
Oh, so he went to heaven. That's good.
Exactly.
No, he went to Graceland.
Yeah, Graceland.
Oh, Graceland.
So, exactly. So Agrippa was
king.
walking around with his blue suede shoes the whole time. And I was kind of not sure how things were going to go, especially when I was like, oh no, I lost Minotep. He was the one guy that I had. Now,
I hate it for you.
The player was really good because I didn't even know he came back and played Ajax. I thought that was just somebody I hadn't met yet. Nice. So I didn't realize it was the same player. I was wondering why Ajax liked my character so much.
I literally put the Burger King crown on both characters so people would know.
It went right above my head.
That is so funny.
But yeah, no, I almost died though. Staff member number 5, the doppelganger, I think, where the changeling. Yeah, he was trying to throw me off the roof. We tried to arrest him because we were suspicious of him. But everybody was suspicious of everybody.
Just how you go, yeah.
Exactly. I tried to convince people to pull a Caesar on Paulie because I was seeing that he was trying to like take over power in the middle of this room, and I was like, okay, this might work for me. It's like, wait, you don't have an army here, and there's like 9 of us in the room. They decided, I guess, to do that later while I was getting thrown off a balcony, but or attempted thrown off. But yeah, no, it was a fun game. I mean, I actually disagree with you though a little bit, Jay, because I actually enjoy the hour-and-a-half intros to the games.
Well,
It gets me right into it. But then again, I've got too much time on my hands, so I did enjoy the character note sheets because whenever I was in Wesley's game, I got like 5 pages because I was the mayor. So
right. Yeah, even as student number 3, I got 3 pages.
Yeah. Now, I do think though that one of the things though that Wesley probably did back then, because I know he's running them at conventions now, but when it's his group of friends, I'm assuming that these guys probably had an idea of who they were going to play as for a while, and they probably got, at least with the other BrawnSteins like Banania, I know that Arneson knew who he was going to be before he went.
Mhm.
That's when he came up with all that plan. So I wonder if he doesn't do as long an intro, or he didn't do as long of an intro with those guys because they kind of already knew what was going on.
I don't want to say half. The majority of his intro is the history part of it, which, like he said, those guys didn't need to know. So, you know, just like if I was running, let's say, if I was running a Nightstein and it was only my players, I wouldn't need to give them the history of Savmon and the conflict and all that because they would just know it.
Yeah,
they would just skip those pages, right?
I need to. I was talking to B-Dubs the other day, and he said that I should convince some of the bros to play because of course, he was talking to me about Broser, but then I was like, the way I run my games like this most often is we run it like war game style. So I have a brown paper map on the table, and we're doing the same sort of play style, but everybody's a different faction with a different little army on the board. So I've got to get some of y'all to play that with me at some point. But otherwise, though, I loved the system you used with it being.
Oh, thank you.
So that was very, very cool. I will need your help here soon, though, because my players just assassinated the Emperor last night.
Hey,
so I'm gonna need your help.
Now we're talking,
because it looks like I'll have something similar happening.
Nice,
at least with them. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, I spread my religion in the game. I survived to the end, and I was only 1 vote away from becoming emperor. But it was
Matt.
stolen
How
from
would
me.
you compare BrawnStein to Hale Steinzer? Like, what was it? Was it very similar? Was it completely different? Were you using the same muscles? Was it the same kind of entertainment? How would you compare and contrast going through both of them?
It's hard to compare because every time I play a game that is styled like this, it's always a little bit different, you know? And especially at my own table, we use different systems each time we kind of do it because it's like, well, this time it's going to be more of this, so we're going to need this kind of system. But I don't know, it's kind of like it's the same style of game, but written by a different author.
Right. So like the structure is what I was going for. Obviously the scenario is going to be different, right? Like Wesley was saying, you know, BrawnSteen is his quote unquote 12th night. He has written the opening act to a play for BrawnSteen, and so that's kind of what I was going at with this. But it's a different play. It's not BrawnSteen.
Yeah. And I mean, as far as like the style of people interacting with each other, I mean, that was all the same. It was definitely it's a different feel when you've got all those people in the same actual space in person.
Seems like it would be harder to get away in Scheme if you've got a lot of people that can just like walk over with you guys. Although you might be able to give them dirty looks or things that you can't do on Discord.
It's much easier to stand up and walk right out of jail in person.
Yeah.
But it's not, because you're like, oh, where did he go? I guess he got out at some point. But online it's definitely a different feel because you miss out on the facial stuff. Granted, whenever
and you can't like whisper.
Right. And I got Paulie in a room with me and Minhotep, and we all had our cameras on. So that felt a little bit more like it because we could all see each other. So I think there's something about being able to see the player you're playing Stein with. But otherwise, I thought it was a great game.
Speaking of Paulie, before we get to the big man, or who should have been the big man, but some of the faults I need to take in my setup of the event. There was a few crucial errors I made, and they affected Paulie the most. So I need to apologize for that and just say what they were. One, I did not make it even remotely clear enough that the staff were under his control. Like they were his staff. Okay. Like and so like the staff member one did have a spare key to all rooms, but it was supposed to be like he was just supposed to hold on to it for Paulie. He wasn't supposed to think that it's his office and just go up into the office. But he didn't know. It was a big misunderstanding that I didn't set up correctly.
It was an awesome moment.
Yes, but it was, I'll take blame. And then the other thing is, I should have sat down with the high priest and Paulie before the game and made it more clear that they could do security measures, like taking the people's weapons. And in my head, there was like, because this is a real world, in my head, there's like 30 plus guards outside that they could have called in at any time to have someone arrested. But like, I didn't ever make any of that clear. That all would have had to have been assumed, and there's no way for them to do that. So anyway, go ahead, Paulie, but I'm just apologizing for those things.
All right, Paulie, tell us about your character. Tell us about your BrawnSteen experience. Oh, gosh.
This is a little bit of a weird angle. Hold on. Let me normalize.
No, it's very imposing. It's very imposing.
I promise the theater kiddest performance of any BrawnSteen.
He
player.
delivered too. You should have seen him.
I gave it my best. So I've played in a couple. I think I've played a couple, and I've run one, maybe. But no, I thought this was neatly packaged and prepared. Of course, Jake always goes full bore when he puts documents together for his games. He can never just make a Google Doc and toss it out. He's got to throw down the whole professional layout, beautiful images in there. And then he did I think a good job setting up the goals. Of course, now hearing everyone's goals, it's very obvious why they came in so hot to our introductory conferences, because all of the governors wanted to be emperor.
Yeah. And you were like number one, since you had already taken power after she died. You were like the big hurdle, right?
Yeah, I tried to set myself up when we got on. The high priest and I went to chatting, and to arrange what the two of us were after, and he agreed to back me for emperor, and I agreed to. I don't think I had to give up anything. I think that was he had a couple of goals, and I said that I would participate. And then he said something about reading the will and whatever later, and I said, well, why don't we just go check on it now, since you know what room it's in. And we went up there, and I completed my first objective, which was seize the royal sword from the Empress's casket.
Oh, and that's why you didn't want us up there. You thought we were going to go for your sword.
No, the sword was on me at the time.
Oh.
Yeah. No, I went up there before. There were only two players. No, well, the staff were there, but they don't count. They're the help.
Well, you
that was so when we did the segmented entry, there wasn't just two groups, there's three. So I had everyone from the east, everyone from the west, and then there was the staff and the high priest and Polybius Bromius got to start at the location already. So they
Okay.
got all that time set up.
No wonder you guys were so thick when you rolled in there. I couldn't pry anybody off of the general.
So I made offers to the staff. I told them that if they would just report to me any suspicious goings on, that I would give them a place in my household, and they could even have names. And then I asked Jake if I kept the sword in frame all of the time, could I just steal the royal sword before anyone else really shows up? And he said, yeah, sure. Which is why it was so vital that I have my letter opener to indicate that I'm not drawing the cool royal sword, that I'm using my own.
And he had that tucked into his toga. He whips it out and just starts coming at the camera with it.
I was
almost
really
like a
happy with the
timer.
prop work.
Yeah.
And a letter opener is very good size for
Yep.
waving about at a webcam. It was all good. And then I tried to break off all of the parties as they arrived and introduce myself and establish why it would be in their best interest to back me up without ever directly pitching myself. And then eventually I realized that was not going to work. And so I decided to double down on sort of the servant stabbing and the over-the-top threats.
You had a presence, you had a gravitas when you showed up that could not be denied. All right.
It's very easy when you just tell everyone to shut up.
Well, and the funniest thing was you were convinced it was servant number 2 who was talking, and it was servant number 1 who let us in. And you kept asking him to just, and he's like, well, this is the guy that let everybody in. And you're like, show me the key. And he's like,
I knew which
him.
one I wanted to stab. I didn't care which one actually did anything.
Oh, crap. We just lost Macho. I was hoping to get him to say his bit. If Macho comes back in. Macho, if you come back in, you're up, dude. And
yeah, just go for it. Start talking.
This stinking EV Mux.
Yeah.
Well, it might help out because I have to head out early, so maybe one person gone will help him get back in. But I have to go for a game.
All right, understood, man.
All
Dip
right,
out when you need to, but right now the floor belongs to Macho Mandolf.
I can see that you guys can hear me because I'm flashing, but I can't hear you. I'll just say a couple of things. I was staff member number 3. Who had his own name and secret identity as the skilled assassin who had actually poisoned the Empress. I had some goals which were somewhat odd in some ways, yes. And eventually I kept asking Jay, but why would I do this? Why would I do that? And he said, your character's not smart enough to think of that. So I had to kind of work around some things, and I had to do some killings, and I decided I'd come up with my own alias. So I told people my name was Marcus Varus, and I had a big backstory that I would have dropped in there, which was that I was a former member of the religion of the High Priest, but that I had converted to the King, and that way that gave me an in with both of my targets. But the name of the High Priest as well, being the Secundus, I actually didn't realize that they were the same, but it did confuse the absolute life out of me at the start. I get Archon telling me, coming through on a private chat, and we're doing some back and forth, and I thought I was in the room with him, but I was in the room with the High Priest. And I'm listening to his voice, which is making me just chuckle and chuckle. Finally, I'm typing back and forth, and then I say, oh, your voice is really sending me off. It's nothing like what you usually sound like. I didn't realize you could do voices like that. And of course, he's like, what? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then so I look back and realize, I'm not in the room with him. I'm in the other room. Oh, shit. And that was probably one of the high points of organisation that happened for me during the game. I really enjoyed playing. I love the character sheets. I really enjoyed all of the background. And being able to jump from room to room and sort of just get in with it and mix it up with people was really good. I had some notes that I was going to mention, but unfortunately I left them at home when I jumped in the car. But probably the last thing I'll drop, and then I'll let you guys go back, is that at the very end, where I was very confused what was happening with the boat, I really played up the fact that my character wasn't meant to be that smart, and I was doing some negotiations back and forth with Jay about litigating some stuff, and I come back and I just, the boat's happening. Who's winning? I don't know. And all of a sudden it occurs to me that I can pull this out of the fire for my emperor, my senator, by throwing my dagger at Agrippa and killing him. Even if I've then got to take the blame myself and swallow my own poison, that's what my character would do. And so I cleared it with Jay that would be okay. And then suddenly I come back into the room and I realize, no, wait, the boat's going on. I'm not sure we're going to lose yet. I was so close.
He's just holding the dagger going.
And then, of course, I did publicize on Twitter the back and forth between me and Archon, which was great. So congratulations. Hail the Emperor.
Yeah, that was, so I did put that on Macho. He was like, Jake, why would my character, like, these are all dumb, and I was like, yeah, but like the inspiration for your character is like a Dave Franco style, like freaking comedy movie character where he's just really good at what he does, but he's a moron. And so to facilitate that, I gave him goals that, like, to someone who's not, really smart, like Macho Mandoff, is be like, okay, all right, yeah, I'm doing that. But Macho immediately was like, no, that's dumb. Like, what?
Yeah, you gave one of the smartest players the dumbest character. That is hilarious to me.
I thought it was funny. He did a really good job. He did an awesome job. So,
oh man, I bet he felt like Kamala in the first Biden election, just finger on the button, waiting to see who was going to win.
So I think we just got to go. I think we got to talk about the elephant in the room, the will reading by the high priest.
Yeah, we do.
Before we get to that moment, I do want Archon to
So I joined that late. So if anyone wants to, who was there for the whole thing, want to start.
Well, let's get into that in just a sec. I want Archon to explain how it was that he was able.
Body, you're the one who started attacking the high priest. Is that right?
I don't know if he can.
Oh, okay, stinking Eevee Mux. Before we get to that, Archon, explain to everyone how it was that you were able to talk to Macho inside his mind.
Was anyone there?
Not everybody
from
could
the
do
start?
that.
Sure. I had a magic ring, and he had a magic ring, and so we were allowed to direct message to each other. And so now one would think that this would be an amazing superpower, but in fact, as you saw in our text messages, most of the back and forth between the two of us was having no idea what was going on. And at a certain point, so many people were dying randomly that I started to think, I wonder if everyone has a magic ring and can talk to the assassin. And so that I started to get really nervous about telling him what my plans were, because for all I knew, he could just, maybe he's just like everybody's friendly neighborhood assassin, and we all have rings.
He's like, oh, you want me to kill that guy? Okay, you want to cut his one?
Because it was the weirdest thing, right? So I had this whole hit list of people I expected I would have to kill. And I don't know if you guys watched, but I didn't say very much for a large portion of the game.
Yeah, you were very quiet during the whole stabbing that I witnessed.
and it was essentially, I'm just sitting there being like, okay, pretty soon I'm going to have to, well, he's dead. Oh, well, they took him out. Oh, Paulie.
Those two guys are dead in the same room together.
Yeah, they're dead. Okay. And so I about an hour and a half in, I had my whole goal accomplished, and I hadn't actually even really spoken to anyone yet. And I'm like,
You were just flying under the radar, just watching them drop.
Yeah. So what I decided to do instead was I decided I would spin a whole narrative, taking credit for everything, and like do like this kind of like the scene in Clue when you unveil the secret like explanation of everything that's happened, and I just made it all up. You know, it was just completely made up. I wasn't involved in any of it. But I figured if I said it with enough confidence, people would believe that I was like a great, you know, I had figured it all out, and everybody was like, "Oh, okay, wow, I guess we just figured it out." So.
Who is like the movie War Games? The way to win is not to play until halfway through. All right, Whopper. I'm sorry, I stepped on your.
I was just saying, so I was killed by Dunder, right? As Minhotep. I come back as Ajax, but I spend a good like five minutes putting the Burger King hat, the crown, on Ajax. And that time actually was perfect because I show up back in like the lounge, wherever everyone was at, and everyone is attacking the high priest. Like Dagobah is grabbing him, and I'm just like, okay, if we're gonna go down, if we're gonna go for this fight, we're gonna do it. And I just start grabbing the high priest myself. You know, I'm the Ajax Maximus, the war hero. I just assume that if everyone's going after this guy, he did something wrong. He didn't do anything wrong, apparently. But that was the thing. Then the general, Paulie famous over there, he decides to attack me because I'm attacking the high priest. At which point I give up. I put my sword down. Paulie famous. He scoots out of that room. He runs. I run after him. Okay, and then everyone else is still trying to figure out what is going on in that room as me and the general are in the office, locked away. Okay, I throw my sword on the ground. I say, General, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to disobey orders there. I didn't know what overcame me. Please forgive me. He pulls out his sword, the royal sword, and says, "Get up off the ground, soldier." To which I respond with, "That's the royal sword I have in my goal. Number 1, obtain the royal sword." So I immediately, my sword is on the ground. I immediately yank out my dagger and go to attack him. Little did I know that the royal sword was a Vorpal sword, and if he would have gotten one hit on me, I would have been done. It would have been over. Luckily, I'm able to get 3 because of the modifications made to Boot Hill, where you could have a dagger during the pummeling stage. I was able to get 2 punches off on him, and that was, or I was able to get 3 total, right? Because the weapon attack and the two punches. So I got 3 total, and that last one did him in. Then I had the royal sword. I picked up his body. Apparently, I was the son of the Empress as well, that I didn't know. But I picked up this dead body. I opened the casket of my deceased mother. I drop the dead body in there, and then I lock it up so that nobody knows, so nobody comes in this room and finds a dead body. And I just leave, and I lock the office behind me. I don't know if anyone else has a key, but I just assumed that. I just show back up to the room. And at some point, I think, Alex, you asked, I think you're like, where did the general go? and like, I don't know, like 10 minutes earlier, I announced to the room that I'm running after the general, and I just kept my mouth shut.
Well, I think they stayed and killed 3 more characters while we were discussing.
Oh, okay.
I had planned to take off and grab the sword and the will and go rustle up an army and just declare myself emperor, but unfortunately,
you showed the sword. That was your problem. If you hadn't drawn it, he would have been yours.
Do we want to talk about how we run? How I had combat before we talk about the murder of the high priest?
Let's just talk a little bit about the boot.
Let's get into the high priest. We're already talking about
the value of
it. We'll come back to combat.
You guys can't hear me. Can anyone?
I can. I can hear you, Dunder. Yeah, you're fine. Whopper just goes off. It's fine. It's what he does.
I defer to you, the creator of the game, to tell us a little more at this point.
All right, Jay. First off, can you hear me, Jay?
Yeah, I can.
Evie Marks. Okay, first off, maybe explain Boot Hill a little bit and why it's so good for this BrawnSteen type thing, especially for the busy ref. And
so
to answer Oriflam's question, because he wants to know.
Yeah, so it is, but it also has one fatal flaw, and we ran into it. So Boot Hill is very easy for players to self-adjudicate. It's got a very structured order of combat, which I think might have been, some of the guys didn't know the order of combat, so they're trying to jump into different actions that are later in the order, which was and then you have this % chance of hitting, so just roll percentile under this %, and then you have when you hit, you roll on the wounds table to see where you hit, and then based on where you hit, you roll to see how severe it was. That can create story situations, and you can do all of that without needing a ref. However, where it fails is when you have very large numbers of players, especially if not all of those players know how to play Boot Hill.
Yeah. Now, the last Stein that I played, I was fortunate, and every time I got into combat, there was a player that was comfortable with it and could walk us through.
Right. In a Night Stein, it worked well because at least 50% of the players knew how to do it. So even though some people didn't, they could just rely on the other player and be like, how do we do this?
And you, as a ref, I clearly remember you would jump in, get it started, and then when you saw it was going well, you would jump off and do something else. Like the first time you did that, I was like, whoa, where did he go? We're in the middle of the combat here. And it's like, oh, we don't need him. We can just do this ourselves and tell him what happened later. So that was pretty awesome.
Yeah. So now to the point, though, the murder of the high priest. So I had I had tried something experimental where I was like, okay, with a BrawnSteen, you're setting up the first act of a play. Can I create a mechanism to set up the second act of the play? The answer is no. No, you can't. Because I was like, there's no way that they're going to murder the high priest before he reads the will. And if they do, at least someone will like announce the will. And that did happen, but by then it was almost the end of the whole thing. So in the will, what it was that the royal sword was it was declared that the royal sword was going to go to whoever won a chariot race. And we're going to use the chainmail jousting for the chariot racing. I set up a way to do that.
I was looking forward to the chariot thing. I was excited about that.
Yeah, it set up that she was going to, as a nod to the Dama, she was going to legalize their tradition of honor duels, like 1v1 duels, as long as there's a witness.
Yeah.
And then it was, she leaves her entire fortune to, quote unquote, the one she loved the most. But that was purposefully ambiguous between her lover, which was the Admiral Falco, and then her illegitimate son, which was Ajax. So that was to create up some conflict. Anyway, what happened though was that the high priest player was being very energetic. And he was jumping around trying to find some stuff out, and also into where the second coffin was, and as well as at when the time the will was supposed to be being read, he was jumping around to everyone, I think, to try to get them into the same room to read the will. But he was doing a little too much, and then a couple people were suspicious of him, and then some people were really itching for some combat to finally happen. And I had accounted for that. That's with the chariot race. I always
get my killing in early, right?
Right. I accounted for that with the chariot race. However, they murdered the high priest first.
May I?
Please, Rod.
Go ahead, Rod.
So yes, definitely part of the thing that factored into it was his exuberance, right, of popping in and out. But what had previously happened, right? So very early in the game, I used to stealth roll, open up the casket, and we found out there was no body in it, right? And so that's sticking in the back of my mind. Second, the fact that he had 2 votes and had a brother, So that was like a 3-block total. And at this point, when I took the knife out, 2 of the governors were gone, right? Dunder Moose is gone. I have no idea what's happened to him. I heard that Minhotep was gone, which I had originally thought about a plan of putting him together with the merchant to like solve their debt issues, which they resolved on their own. But now like 2 governors are gone, and I'm a governor, and I'm thinking, okay, there's a voting block. The high priest had to know about the body, right? Because he's got to be part of the official ceremony to take care of this guy. And then people are disappearing, and he's the one that's very visibly popping in and out of rooms. And so Ambassador, was it Gaskin?
Gasset.
Yeah.
Gasset, yeah.
Ambassador Gasset grabs him, and I grab him too. And then he starts caterwauling, right? And I just had enough at that point. I had enough at that point. So I stabbed him in the groin, and he didn't die.
Oh, no.
I stabbed him a second time. The next time it came around, and it was in the face, and it was catastrophic, right? It was
man.
It was a done deal. So, and then people at that point, they're not attacking me; they're attacking Ambassador Gaskin, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to get the will. I took my stealth roll, I grabbed the will, and then little did I know, he had 2 wills. So even after, like Archon, his brother, picked up the other will. So now we've got 2 conflicting wills. My original plan was get the will, step aside, read it, and if it forwards my goals, great. And if it doesn't, I'm going to rip it up, and I'm going to, make sure it disappears entirely from the game. But there were 2 wills, and one of them advanced Ajax, right? Ajax's name was specifically mentioned there. But the fact that there were 2 wills, I thought, okay, I'm in the clear because he was sus, and now he has 2 wills on him. Obviously, I've done the right thing by killing this guy. And no, that was not the way the other players saw it at all.
So actually, the attacks from Falco attacking Gasset, so the Admiral attacking the other ambassador, that happened after you had stabbed the High Priest in the groin, but before you stabbed him in the face. So
I'm sorry. I just want to know at how many places on planet Earth right now was that exact same sentence being said? I think this is the only one. After you had stabbed the High Priest in the groin.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so from that, you can see why, from the information he had, and that's one of the interesting things about these BrawnSteens, why Rod would be like, okay, yeah, no, clearly the priest was behind it, and then everyone else is like, no, you're the bad guy, and he's like, what?
Yeah.
But also from their perspective, he just murdered the High Priest in front of them, and so now he's like, all right, now let me vote, and they're like, wait, what?
He's just standing there with the blood dripping off his dagger. Oh, I'm the bad guy? I think too, it's me.
I think too, he wanted to say, oh, if I'm the tie-breaking vote, then I'll get my vote. Okay, I won't have it otherwise.
Oh, and that's when Reese was like, absolutely not. That's when it's important.
I mean, what was funny to me was that after having murdered the priest, he was then really honest about it, which was his terrible mistake, right? Like at that moment, all he had to do was say, my friends, the priest is the one who murdered the emperor, and I know this because he just approached me about murdering Paulie Famous. I had to strike while the moment was there. Let's search his body, and I'm sure we can find evidence of it. And then if they don't find evidence, then be like, someone must have taken the evidence and pointed it out.
Oh, you were good at this, man.
But instead, you were like, well, these were my reasons, and you sort of logically went through the reasons.
He's like pointing at himself with the dagger, just hitting himself with ropes of blood. You would have done the same thing as me.
Yeah. So my experience with these games is that, because everyone has so little information to go on, ultimately the winner is the guy who can spin the narrative the best, right? And and so at that critical moment, man, that was your moment. You had the game in your hands, but you were honest.
So the fog of war is the weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. I would like to talk about a couple of the players who aren't here who I thought had some really good moments, and then maybe afterwards I could talk about building, like creating a BrawnSteen, creating the scenario. But first, a couple players that I thought did really well, but they're not here. Number one, I always got to shout out to my man Dan. He's one of my actual players, and I'm trying to convince him to be in Josh's Space Stein on Saturday. But anyway, he played staff member 1, and he was the only staff member who was actually a staff member, who was just this normal guy who was just like trying to do his job.
Stabbed by Paulie.
Yeah, right. But he also he chucked staff member number 2, who was secretly the Primarch, the top agent of the Red Dragon, off of the balcony. So he's a normal guy, but because of how Boot Hill works, Necro, who was playing staff number 2, was playing like a 14th level warrior, and with like just phenomenal stats, magic armor. He was the changeling guy people were talking about. He could change his face because of some magic stuff, and he gets in this conflict with just Joe Dude, and Joe Dude chucks him up a balcony.
He had just had enough. He'd had a bad day. His boss
but
was
the best
him.
part was, so he just had, this is enough is enough, I'm having a bad day. So Dan did a really good job. But then to talk about Necro playing staff member number 2, so he's playing this secret agent, and I told him, okay, he wanted to, he could change his face, but I told him the only caveat is that I have at least 2 players, so you, Dunder, and Josh playing Count Cassette, who the only way that they will be able to recognize who you are, because you have like a foghorn leghorn Kentucky Fried accent. And but I'm not going to say I'm not going to say what his actual accent is, but the player has a natural non plain accent that isn't, and so like when you merge his accent with Southern, it creates a whole new fun amalgam. And but he did a great job, because he came back like 3 times as like different staff members, and just every time just got chucked off a balcony.
He's like landing on his previous bodies.
but he can only die from magic, and so he's landing, like quote unquote dying by going unconscious. I told him he had to stay unconscious for 10 minutes. Then he changed his face, come back as a different guy.
But he still sounds like Foghorn Leghorn.
But he still sounds like, yeah. And then Night Danger, I thought was doing a pretty good job. I gave him he was the Senate minority, and his goal was to be like, because he was the head of the settings like KGB or CIA, the Prismatists, the arcane intelligence agency, and so he was supposed to be like trying to be doing some detective work, and with the little amount of information and all the misinformation, he was doing a pretty good job. And then
I don't even think I got to play with Night Danger. I think I died before I could come across.
Yeah, he came in like right after you died.
So did you see the comment? Necro says, not quite. We were grappling in the kitchen, and he strangled me and threw me in the oven. It was Paulie who chucked me off the balcony, and Night Danger who stabbed me on the balcony. Man, you had a rough night, Necro.
And then finally, obvious shout-outs to my good friend Obese Reese, who is playing Wingard, the representative from the Magic School. And I thought he sounded like he was doing a pretty good job role-playing and being that character and whatnot, and got into some of the debates and dialogues and whatnot. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of characters. Had a lot of fun.
It sounds like from all the stuff you baked in, like there was a lot of intrigue. There was 2 wills. Yeah. There was clues and mysteries and stuff. How much do you put into setting up this one crazy night?
Yeah, quite a bit. So One thing is, and so again, it ended up being very violent at times, like even out in the open violent. And part of that was because I pushed for the violence a little more than I think I should have, because I was writing it with my own players in mind, and my players are little reluctant to violence, and so I almost have to give them a little bit extra. So I think in the future I would just tone it back just a little bit.
It takes a lot for me to want to get violent in a BrawnSteen, I gotta say.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Jeffro painted me into a corner the first time, and I've been unfairly libeled ever since.
So that was one big thing, but okay, I'll get to the August 2nd after, but first, when I talked to the BroXT chat about this, and Dunder, you saw this. I won't go into too crazy amount details, but I'll sprinkle in some teasing for a future This Is Dunder Moose episode, probably hopefully with like Crom or someone.
Right
but
on.
Using that the reason that these BrawnSteens like that did not go down at all like I thought it was going to. It not even remotely. However, so many people still had so much fun because, like, at the core, it is just such a condensed, like crystallized form of the agency theory of fun, of the, from my understanding, and it's Macris's theory, but from my understanding of it, that what's important is that there's consequences, meaningful choices, and witnesses to those choices. If that's Macris, do you say that's an accurate, like very broad stroke?
Yeah, that's a great summary.
I feel like
Okay.
the witnesses thing is one of the newer innovations, though. That if the DM doesn't even have to be there to see it, as long as somebody else saw the thing happen, then it happened, right?
Right. And so for me, when I'm setting up these convergences, I've told you, Dunder, about the wheel I create, but also I look at a Venn diagram of 5, 7, and 11, and because what it is for there to be meaningful choices and witnesses, you need 3 people. Because if you have 2 people in conflict, the third person can make a choice on which side wins.
Yeah.
And then the other 2 are witnesses. So when you have only 3 people, there's really only a single choice. It's one Mexican standoff. It's the end of the good, bad, the ugly. And that is awesome. But the chances of that getting set up correctly are very slow. When you get to 5 people, then you could have 2 versus 2 with a person being able to make a meaningful choice, because they would still determine the winner. You get more witnesses, but you also have opportunities for smaller. You have more opportunities for smaller 3-person interactions, convergences.
You get swing votes. The odd number is important.
Well, yeah, but also, like, you can have 2 people talking over here, and you can have 3 people over here, and still create a situation where there's a convergence and a meaningful choice. And the more people you get in, the more opportunities for that, and even more like 5-person opportunities. I would say past 11, it starts getting like I feel like 11's really that like big sweet spot based on my theory, but because we had 16 at one point, and you start getting, there's almost too much. It still was fun, right? But like,
you can't keep track of what's
right. You lose the amount of meaning you have in your choices starts to get diminished because of your single choice has less weight to it. Whereas like at 5 or 7, your choice has far more weight than it does when there's over 11 people.
I can see
that. And so that's, I don't know, that's my theory, on the BrawnSteens in a very broad general sense. So I try to, what I do is I create a circle, I put everyone's name on the circle, and I use the 3 goals, and I try to make sure that everyone is interacting with having a certain number of interactions or potential interactions with other people.
Based on the goals.
Based on the goals, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
so
that's kind of how I set it up.
I appreciate that. who won the BrawnSteen and how'd they do it?
Oh, it was this one? It was Macris.
Okay, Macris, tell me about the moment when you won and how did everybody know that you had won?
Well, the victory came when we had the vote and I was elected emperor, which came after the high priest had been killed and Polyphemus had been killed and the two governors had been killed. And
so how many were still in the running at the time?
One? So was there one governor?
There were two governors. There were two governors left. The Senate Minority Leader and the representative of the Mages Guild. The Mages Guild wasn't going to vote for my opponent because my opponent didn't like wizards. I had 2 votes, so that gave me 3, and so it could have been 3-3. But one of the governors had killed the high priest, and so he recused himself from the vote as part of like the back and forth. And so I ended up winning 3-2. And Polyphemus, I guess, had let himself get killed by at that point. So I just pinned the blame for the Empress's murder on him because he had made a big show of being like a power hungry asshole. And I had the evidence that the priest, the Empress had loved the admiral. And so I came up with this whole story that Polyphemus had killed the Empress because he was jealous of her love affair with the admiral, and he was jealous of the heir being born, who was the love child, and he knew he had no chance. And I just completely made it all up. I don't think Polyphemus had any idea. He was dead at that point anyway.
He was dead and gone.
But the thing is, I didn't kill him. I didn't kill anybody. They just all died, like everybody else.
Did anybody find the general's corpse in the coffin with the?
No, I wish they had. That would have been great.
Yeah, and so it was just kind of weird. I was like, oh well, I guess I won because everyone who was opposed to me got themselves killed or recused from the vote, and then I had a convincing narrative to make it make sense. But it was all lies.
Right on. So and that was a goal for a lot of us was get. Did you have any other goals besides getting elected that you met on your sheet?
So my 3 goals were pin the blame on someone else, which I did. I pinned it on Polyphemus. They were to make sure that 3 electors got killed off, which I did by doing nothing. And then they were to be the emperor, which
so you got all 3 of your goals. That is impressive.
I got all 3 goals accomplished. Yeah.
Right on, man.
Yeah. I wish I could take credit like that it was all raw mastery, but I showed you guys like the conversations I was having with my elite assassin, and I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. Everyone is just dying, and so I just made sure to always be in a room with lots of other people, never draw weapons, say as little as possible, and then try and like present reasonable explanations for things that made me seem like the moderate centrist. And I think people were really surprised when it turned out that my guy was actually the one that had murdered the Empress and was behind everything. So.
Yeah.
So in a game where everybody is rushing to violence, it is the cool head. It is the one who keeps his wits about him that can achieve all of his goals. Jay, so you've talked a little bit about how you set it up. You've talked a little bit about how you were surprised along the way. I've heard you mention that you would even almost enjoy to run the exact same scenario again, like the original BrawnSteen is.
Yeah, so I've been talking with a couple of the guys, with Polyphemus and Josh and Hoot, who was in who's been in several of our
Hoot Owl. He was in Nightstein.
Yeah, and originally I was going to on August 2nd because I have a bunch of other content creators that I've reached out to, and after this I was going to do another wave of reaching out. Black Lodge Games, The Basic Expert, Double D. Harmony again. A couple of them are going to help me get in contact with Kelsey Dion because I don't know how to do that. And there was like 1 or 2 other Alchemic Raker, some of these guys, and run on August 2nd. Another one like this, and it was going to be set back in Savmon, and kind of be a sequel to a Nightstein. But I'm on the fence of doing that. Or if I just make a couple tweaks and change who the actual murderer of who killed the Empress was. That's easy enough. I could, especially if the will is red, if the will is actually red and there's a chariot race, I could have Josh, Paulie, you back on Dunder and a lot of these new guys and rerun the event just like Wesley. And then it really would be the most Wesley authentic BrawnSteen that isn't Wesley, because it would be a same scenario, run again. And one of the other reasons I'm very tempted to do that, one, because I think it would turn out dramatically different, and it would be very interesting to see the changes, the differences. Two, I could have those minor improvements. But three, the big one is because I would, Rod's done this, and so maybe I'll have to pick Rod's brain, but eventually I would like to put out a couple, not a crazy amount of, you've seen the primers, the packets, the primers that I make. If I included character sheets,
top-notch,
and then
man.
Yeah, and then I just actually had someone edit it for me, because you guys could probably all tell that no one edited it, because I can't. But
I will say, they're not quite Poplar slipcase good.
No,
but they are top notch.
But I am fairly certain that. So I think I would need to run 2 more BrawnSteens. This one again with the changes I would make is how that went go, and keep in mind that I'm not running for my players, but for generic people, and so keep that in mind. And then a third one where I run for a small number of people, where it's like 5 to 7 players, because I think if you were to put out these BrawnSteen style scenarios that anyone could pick up and play, you need to acknowledge that most people are going to struggle enough getting 5 people together for a game night, let alone more than that. And I have some methods to deal with some of that, and how to deal with, well, what if there's this many players? What if there's this many players? I'm not going to reveal my secrets here, but I have thought about that. But so that's why I'm tempted to run Hail Steinzer again on August 2nd. But also the idea of the sequel to A Nightstein is really cool. So I'll have to talk with more people, see what people think it would be cooler, more fun, and then just go with wherever the fun is.
Well,
so
can I ask? I got a sense from some of the back channel stuff that you were not as satisfied with this one as you were with A Nightstein. So before I have you answer that, I'll go around the room and ask the players that are still here, were you guys satisfied with the experience? Did you feel like it was good, or it could have been better? Or like, what was your take on your experience? We'll start with Whopper and go clockwise.
Yeah, I thought in a lot of ways it couldn't have gone better, given how I guess you said the mistakes at the start that you made. Given those, I think I thought it went very well. I made some mistakes as well in the game. I think I could have played slightly better, but I thought it was great.
Yeah, Agrippa, Bromius, and definitely Wingard. Tremendous role playing. So I just being in the presence of great role playing, that was fantastic. I had a great experience. Sorry, I derailed the entire chariot race.
No, it's not. It's no one person's fault. It was besides mine.
All right, so Necro weighed in. He says, "I got a dip, but to answer that question, this was a lot of fun, even if it didn't go the way that you thought." How about it, Marinus? What do you think? Was it a success? Was it not as good as some of the other experiences you've had?
It was absolutely a success. I had a lot of fun, even though with this one I was a bit more quiet and reserved. But a lot of that was because I knew anything I said would put a big target on me. Since I was from Dama, so I was more quiet, but then I was able to kind of flip and be bloodthirsty, and it worked really well.
I feel like I always have a target going into these. I feel like there's almost an expectation that I'm going to do something crazy and violent at the beginning, and if I don't, then I won't be living up to why people invited me in the first place. Archon, how did you? I mean, obviously you probably had a good experience. You won the bloody thing.
I was really impressed at the commitment to the role play. Actually, it was really top tier. Particularly the fellow who Paulie Famous who rolled in with the toga and the sword and just stayed in character the whole time.
He was going full LARP with the costume and everything.
He was all in, and then the fellow who was the governor who had converted to the king and who just never broke character the whole time, like, and with a complete straight face, never like without irony whatsoever, was promoting Elvis Presley as his god. I was just really impressed at the role play. I felt, I was a tier lower in terms of the role play skill, because I was basically just playing myself. Like, I'm like a it's like a skullduggerous bastard. Okay,
give me a stretch.
I may or may not have written that role specifically for you, but whatever.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and stroke my goatee and look sinister. Cool. Yeah. But it was. I thought it was great. I had a great time.
All right. So I wanted to get that out there before you express, why was it that you were more frustrated with this one than the last?
Well, one, I mean, this also makes it more Wesley authentic. Was I'm seeing it from the ref's point of view. So what I'm experiencing is not the same as what everyone is, and everyone talks about, well, Wesley the first time he thought it was failure. Well, yeah, because you see a different point of view. Mm-hmm. But I would put I have three main reasons. I don't think it's a failure. I think that I failed, like, quote unquote failed. I did not achieve some of my design goals, I guess, is a better,
which we don't know what those were. They're not in our heads, right. So we just got to have fun.
Yeah. Right. And it shouldn't matter, because, like,
compared to what was.
It's the way the outcome went. That's not what however the outcome went, that was awesome, and it sounds like and everyone had a lot of fun, so it was a win. This was a win. I'm not saying it wasn't. But I thought I had solved a couple things, or had tried a couple things that didn't work. One, you can't do a setup a second act. Like, you just can't. So that was there. In the future, that needs to, like, maybe you can do that like 10 minutes after everyone shows up. You wouldn't necessarily have to do it right off the bat, but 10, 15 minutes in, you probably could. However, one of the successes was the delayed start. I thought that went really well, and that was really helpful. I think that if I were to run this again, Boot Hill is awesome, but me and my players sat down and we converted Boot Hill to work with the spirit of Boot Hill to work with a single D6. And it is like, I showed it. I had my grandma play it when we were at camp, and like, she could understand it. So the spirit of Boot Hill and it being Boot Hill, but if it was for like a mass, or like people who don't know how to play Boot Hill, using that simpler conflict resolution system. So that would be one. Another one was you can't set up a second act. And then I guess there's technically four. So there was a little more clumping than there have been in some of the past. And what I mean is, like, everyone gathering into one room. And I have to figure out why that was. Because, like, that's fine. You want convergences, but you don't want everyone in the same room. And there was a couple moments where that was it. So I don't, it wasn't huge, right? But, like, I would like to, if I'm trying to make more of these, figure out what causes that. Is it FOMO? What is it, to try to alleviate that in the future? And then the final one was, and again, just design choices, was genre. Like, I had a genre I was aiming for, and it was a little more openly violent than that. Now, it's still fun for a lot of people, right? But, like, if I'm trying to make another one in the future, I want to be able to try to hit a genre, is all I'm saying, right? You know what I mean? I'm not mad that the outcome was what it. I'm not even mad, but, like, I'm not, that the outcome was the outcome was awesome. There's a couple, if I'm going to be making more in the future and running for more people, I want to just have a more solid grasp on how to do A, B, and C, right? But
gotcha.
None of these are like crazy big. Like clearly it worked, right? And so like where we're at, it's like I'm just trying to hit a level of mastery, and there's a couple more steps to take, I think, but nothing crazy.
Archon, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the reason I clumped was because very early on, people who were off by themselves died, and so I immediately decided I would stay with the largest group, whatever what was going on.
Yeah, that is something
I didn't want to get killed off.
Something definitely to keep in mind, where if you have people dying off in the background, the logical result of that is that people will start clumping. So that's something that I will, if I set up those scenarios, I will need to keep in mind. But yeah, that's perfectly valid. Like, oh, if they go away, they die, then I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Sometimes, as Brian Renninger says, sometimes all the senators stab the emperor in the back.
Yeah.
Right on. All right, guys. How about we go around the room? If people want more Archon, where can they go? If they want to support Alexander Macris, what should they do to look for you? Where are you at, bro?
All right. Well, I've got a YouTube channel, Arbiter of Worlds, which I supposedly do once a week, more like once every 2 weeks. Catch me on Twitter at #Archon. Drive Through RPG, Autark is the name of my RPG company. I do Adventure Conquer King system and Ascendant RPG.
Right on. All right, Marinus, where can they get more Marinus goodness?
Wow, I have to go after Macris. Okay, so I am on Twitter's or X as Two of Adventurers. And that is where I post things like play reports where I write short fictions and various observations.
Right on. All right, Whopper Wizard, we're just going clockwise. Where can people follow you and keep up on what you're doing?
So, if I may, don't follow me. Just go Drive Through RPG, search up Browser, download it, play it. But if you really got to follow me, I'm on Twitter. My handle's in my name here.
Right on. All right, Rod, Mr. Hampton.
Sure. Dragons Beyond RPG on YouTube. Do not follow me on Twitter. I am far too embedded in political content, which is the reason why I got off Twitter the first time, and then I came back and I do the same damn thing. So don't do that. Dragons Beyond RPG on YouTube.
Wargamer's gonna wargame. All right, and Mr. Letourneau.
Yeah, so I have a Twitter. My handle is Jacob Letourneau. You're not gonna be able to spell that, but that's fine. And then I have a Substack, which is Ghost Planet Games. I need to make another article on that. I've been remiss doing travel work, and prepping for this Hail Steinzer. But I will be putting out another article soon. So yeah.
All right, and I guess my last question before we end it, and thank you guys for how much time I got from all of you. I don't take that for granted. I'm getting a lot of requests lately, people reaching out in the DM saying, how can I get involved? How can I play these kind of games? Is there a Discord I can join? Is there a place I can watch? If you guys were starting now, how would you get plugged into what's going on in this space with these kind of games?
So I'm new to this space. Play with the people you play with now. Bring some BroSR content to it. Post about it. Get the receipts out there. People are watching. People are looking. We see.
Yeah, you learn by doing. So there's already content out there so that you can run your own BrawnSteen. Go do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to get involved with the people, most of us are on Twitter now. Again, that's its own space with its own rules, so be wary. That's how I joined. I knew that I was in once Griff Morgan blocked me. I think the guy's
can laugh
great.
At that because he's blocked me 3 times, but we're friends now. So
well, I've played D&D with him in person. He's like, I had a lot of fun. But Twitter is its own space. So
yeah, it's its own thing. His blocks may not last forever. He may come around and unblock you for a bit. So I don't know what you did. Good. All you got to do is put hashtag BroSR, and he'll usually
that's what I
filter you for a bit, just for his own sanity.
That's what I did.
Just put hashtag BroSR doesn't know how to run a BrawnSteen. I challenge you to prove me wrong by having me in one of your games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? You'll be in like 24 hours later, you're going to be in a BrawnSteen and everything is golden from there.
That's right. Then, you get invited.
And then the next day you're just like, I was proven wrong. Hashtag love the BroSR. Then you're in and it's like over. Follow me for more insights.
It is, you know what, you're making a joke, but there is so many people that are in the bros right now that started off just having like knockdown, drag out fights with them. And it's almost like the end of a Steven Seagal movie where like you just got to beat on each other until you throw your arms around each other. I love you, man. I'm getting you a beer. And you're spitting your own teeth out. Yeah, it's the weirdest thing, man.
I don't know if I'm in the BroSR or not. I used to call myself BroSR adjacent, and now I'm not sure. I think I might have slipped full BroSR at some point.
It'll happen quick. You won't know it until it's too late, and then they have you. All right, guys. Well, thanks everyone for joining, and for more of this kind of stuff, I've got a lot of these after action reports of BrawnSteins or BrawnSteens or whatever you want to call them. Definitely, if you haven't already subscribed, let everybody here know that you enjoyed by clicking on that thumbs up. I don't know about you guys, but even not on my own channel, but even when I go on someone else's, I'm always kind of trolling, saying, did people like that? Did they leave comments? Did they put a thumbs up? So definitely encourage them with thumbs up. Jay, I saw you repping the swag. I was too late to get the shirt, but the Living Earth URF is Paulie Famous's, what is it? It's a Discord, yeah?
Yeah, that's where the big club play is going down. We got several DMs all running in the same AD&D world. I run on Mondays, Brig runs on Tuesdays, Paulie runs some days. We got Josh running some Traveler, we got Snuff running some Traveler. We got all kinds of games in there.
And Living Earth has its own Substack, so you can follow along. Even if you don't want to play or don't have time to, you can follow along on all the innovations, the stuff that they're discovering, the stuff they're rediscovering, the stuff that the problems that they're working on. So, yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, every one of you. I really had fun playing with you, even though I was just there for a little bit. I realized I should not have drank my own poison. I should have just let you drink it and then laughed at you as you died and then played the rest of the night. But also my house didn't burn down, so that's great as well. So thanks, everyone. Good night, and we'll see you for the next one. We got one coming up in August. We got Space Stein coming up on Saturday, and you know I'm going to cover that as well, so don't miss it.